All right, what's going on, everybody? Ron Sneller here, coming at you with another episode of Wealthy and Wise Wednesdays, where I take your questions on everything finance and retirement planning related, helping to put you back in the driver's seat of your financial future. So, as we're doing this here, go ahead and drop your comments and your questions into the comment section, and we're going to get going here. All right, just checking my stream to make sure that this looks like it is working correctly. Beautiful. Let's get going here. All right, so first question that I often get is this: how much can I safely withdraw from my retirement account each year without running out of money? So I think we can have a great discussion here about the problems with market volatility, and once you retire, really how the rules of the game change for you. Because no longer are you a saver, no longer are you an investor. You're not saving money, you're not contributing money anymore. In fact, you're actually taking money out of your retirement accounts in order to replace the paycheck that you lost when you retired, right? And if the stock market is doing well, it becomes a lot easier. But that's the thing about retirement. We need to plan for the unknown. We need to plan for uncertainty. When we retire, we don't know if we're going to retire into a bull market or into a bear market. So some of the common fallacies that I've seen is people will think to themselves things along the line of like, well, the market averages 8% every year, so I should be able to take out 8% of my investment portfolio every year. And on the surface, that sounds smart. And on the surface, in fact, it sounds like, hey, if I do that, not only should I be able to take out 8% per year, I should actually be able to preserve my principal, right? And on the surface, that sounds all well and good, but here's the problem. Does the market go up exactly 8% every year? And the answer is no. And then my next question would be, can the market ever go down? Ooh, yeah, it's been a few years, but yeah, the market can go down. So what happens if the market falls 20% and you're taking out 8% of your portfolio because, the market averages 8%? Well, you turned a 20% loss into a 28% loss, right? The combination of the market downturns combined with your withdrawals just accelerates the downward spiral on your portfolio. And then what happens if we have an extended bear market or a really severe downturn like we saw? Because guys, listen, I know the market's been really good the last few years. And so newer investors think that the market can only go up. But look, if you look at market history over the last 25 years, we've had two separate crashes where the market has fallen 50%. We had the dot-com crash, and then we had the great financial crisis in 2008. And since then, we had COVID, which was a pretty steep downturn. Didn't last long, thankfully, right? In 2022, the market declined 20%, and thankfully that one didn't last long either. But we have to plan for the uncertainty. We have to plan for the market going down, because if the market falls 40 or 50% during the course of, let's say, 3 years, and you're taking out 8% per year during that 3 years, it's like, if you're retired with $1 million and that kind of in that kind of worst case scenario, like you're withdrawing into a bear market, your $1 million could be down to $300,000 or $400,000. And then even when the market recovers, you just don't have enough money left in the account to take full advantage of the recovery. And plus, you're still relying on it for your retirement withdrawals because you need the income, right? So we call that problem sequence of returns risk. Sequence of returns risk, meaning that once you start drawing from your retirement portfolio, a bear market can really be destructive to the growth of your dollars and can even send your portfolio into a death spiral. And that's why you hear things like conventional pieces of wisdom, like you shouldn't listen to Dave Ramsey telling you to take out 8%. All of the actual retirement data shows that if you want to be safe and have a very high level of success or high probability that you won't run out of money, you should pace yourself with something called the 4% safe withdrawal rate. So that was kind of a long-winded way of getting to this answer, like how much can I safely withdraw from my investment portfolio? Historical data shows us that 4% is the safe withdrawal rate. We have 100 years of rolling stock and bond market data going all the way back to the 1920s. And we've seen that if you pace yourselves at 4%, meaning if you retired with $1 million, you can take $40,000 per year, year one, and it would be indexed for inflation. So it would go up a little bit every year, 3 or 4% every year. But you'd start with $40,000 a year, and that would be your standard of living in addition to Social Security and any pensions that you may have. But just 4% per year, right? And that's not a bulletproof withdrawal rate. I mean, that still fails 5 to 10% of the time, at least historically, right? But it's considered to be very, very strong. So we'll talk about, fixed income and Social Security, pensions. We'll talk about annuities and how annuities can alleviate some of the pressure or some of the strain on the investment portfolio to create income. But if you're looking at a paradigm of just investing in stocks and bonds, having everything in securities, that's how much you can withdraw safely from the portfolio. It's called a 4% safe withdrawal rule, or the 4% safe withdrawal rate. Next question that we get a lot, and guys, by the way, if you're watching the live stream, feel free to drop your questions in the comment section. So when I see those, we can get those answered for you. But next question we come up with, or we hear a lot, is when should I take Social Security? Should I take it at age 62 or should I wait until age 70? And I'll tell you, the average person, from what I see on my social media feeds, the average person thinks that you should take it at 62. You should take it as early as possible and get to the getting while the getting's good. But is that the right thing to do? And the answer is probably not. The Social Security Administration, they know the statistics, they know the longevity and life expectancy of people, how long they're on Social Security on average, and how much or how much of a benefit pool they're taking out. And they say that the average Social Security beneficiary or Social Security recipient, they cost themselves on average $182,000 of lifetime income by making a critical claiming mistake. And that mistake is taking Social Security too early and taking it at age 62. Now, I'm not saying that you're a dummy if that was your plan to take it at 62. I actually have some clients that have taken it at 62 and others where we're planning on taking it at 62. And there's very specific reasons for that. But for somebody to say, I just want to take it at 62 as soon as possible, and they talk about break-even periods and things of that nature. And most people, when they're looking at break-even calculations, they say, if I take it at 62 versus waiting until 67, like the break-even age isn't until age 78. Well, guess what? The average 65-year-old, you know how long they live? If you've made it till age 65, the average 65-year-old male lives until age 85. The average 65-year-old female lives until age 88. So for a lot of people, delaying Social Security can make sense just from a number standpoint, from an actual financial standpoint. Okay. And the other fact of the matter is that most people haven't saved enough. They're not ready for retirement. So a lot of times people should delay retirement for a few years, which means they can save more money, invest more money, give their investments time to grow, but yes, also delay their Social Security benefit, because beyond 62, every year that you delay your Social Security benefit, you get a 7 to 8% bump on that Social Security benefit when you turn the Social Security benefit on. So again, guys, I would say that this is really, it's an individual question. You need to look at really the entire scope of your retirement goals and what it is you're trying to do with your risk tolerance and your time horizon. It also can depend on your health and your marital status. That's the other thing. We can't just look at the break-even calculation, because if you're the higher income earner, what's going to happen is when you die, your lower earning spouse, their Social Security benefit's going to go away completely, and they're going to take over yours. But if you took yours right away at age 62, you're not only lowering your own benefit for the rest of your life, but you're locking your spouse into a lower survivor benefit for the rest of their life as well. So that's another thing that you have to consider, right? Now, again, if you have poor health and you're likely not going to live to age 85 or 90, if you're in poor health, then yeah, it could make sense to go ahead and take your Social Security benefit as early as possible, right? Because one of the best things about Social Security is that Social Security is a lifetime income annuity, meaning it pays you for life and it's inflation adjusted, right? But if you're likely not going to be in that group that lives into their 80s or into their 90s, maybe you don't need that guaranteed lifetime income for as long. So maybe it makes sense for you to take your Social Security benefit early. And then I would say just the third thing is planning, right? Because when I have clients that want to retire at 62, what we do is we're looking at their overall picture. We're looking at his Social Security benefit. We're looking at her Social Security benefit. We're looking at any annuities or rental real estate or pensions and their investment portfolio, 401ks, IRAs. We're looking at the whole picture, right? And if they really want to retire at 62, and if we can't do so safely without using their Social Security benefit, I say, listen, guys, let's just turn it on, right? Because at the end of the day, the goal in maximizing Social Security isn't just maximizing it just from the dollar amount. The goal is to maximize it as a financial tool to help you reach your goals. And if you want to retire at 62 and you can't do it without Social Security, but if we do turn on Social Security, you can accomplish your goals and we can get you out at 62, then I think at that point in time, go ahead and take it, right? What I wouldn't want to do is tell somebody you need to stick in a job where you're absolutely miserable or it's bad for your physical health or your mental health. And you need to stay there and work until 65 or work until you're 67 until you get the full retirement age, just so you can get more Social Security benefit. I don't think that's the proper way to look at things either. So again, just in summary there, I would say it's a very personalized decision. You need to look at several factors. And that's where working with a good financial planner or retirement planner like myself can be extremely helpful. All right, guys, if you're enjoying the conversation, do me a favor. Make sure that you like this live stream. Make sure that you follow me here on social media and drop your comments and questions below. We will answer those questions as they come in. So one of the things we're looking at here is about annuities. Are annuities actually a good investment, or are they just expensive insurance products? So this is a perfect opportunity to truly explain what annuities are. They're not investments. They're not designed to beat the stock market. They're designed to remove risk. That's what insurance is. It's designed to remove risk. And the type of annuities that I use are designed to function like a pension and create reliable lifetime income. Okay. Now, we talked earlier about what is the safe withdrawal rate from a stock market portfolio. And we talked about how the safe withdrawal rate is 4%. But with a lot of annuities that we're doing for our clients, we're getting 7 or 8% payout rates on those. And sometimes when people see my content or I'm explaining it to them in client meetings, they say, wait a second, Ron, you told me that the safe withdrawal rate is 4%. But there's a caveat to that, right? It's 4% if those assets are volatile or if they're variable, if they can move up and down with the market, right? But annuities, the kind that we use, where they're guaranteed income annuities, they don't move up and down with the markets. They function like a pension. They're an insurance contract. And so the exact payout rate that you're going to get watching this may differ because it does depend on your age and it depends on your marital status and the survivor benefits. It also depends on how old you are when you roll it over and if there's going to be a deferral period before you turn on the income. But on average, for my folks, my clients, like if someone is planning with me and they're 63 and they're wanting to retire at 65, we're planning for like a 2-year deferral period, like they're planning a couple years in advance. On average, we're securing 8% payout rates for these folks, which is double the safe withdrawal rate from a managed money portfolio, right? And so that's where annuities are really going to shine, is they remove a bunch of retirement risks that stocks and bonds can't do. Number one, they remove stock market risk, or they remove the risk of market loss. Number two, they remove longevity risk because they pay you a guaranteed pension for the rest of your life, just like Social Security. Number three, they remove withdrawal rate risk. Number four, they remove sequence of returns risk. We talked about earlier just how devastating it can be if the market goes down early on in your retirement and you're forced to rely heavily upon your investment accounts while they're in a downturn, right? So annuities remove all of these key retirement risks. And in fact, the lead professor of wealth management over at the American College of Financial Services, Michael Finca, he says that annuities are the most efficient and a cost-effective way of creating retirement income, not investment growth, creating retirement income. In fact, he goes as far to say that you can have a more expensive retirement and a riskier retirement that'll cost more, meaning if you leave all the money in stocks and bonds, or you can have a safer retirement that costs less. Think about the efficiency. Here's what he means, right? Keep all your money in stocks and bonds. The safe withdrawal rate is 4%. Move some of that money into an annuity instead. The guaranteed payout rate can be 7 or 8%. Again, for a lot of my clients, it's 8%. So 8 is double 4, right? So 8 is twice as much as 4. That's much more efficient and much more cost effective for doing the job of creating retirement income. As an example, we had some clients in here earlier. They just hired us to do their retirement planning, and their goal is to retire on $100,000 per year. When we factor in their Social Security benefits are about $45,000 per year between the two of them. And so they have an income gap of about $55,000 per year. And quite frankly, their income gap is a little bit more than that because we're going to need $55,000 a year net. Okay. Now they have $1 million to work with, but remember, if we need to create $55,000 or $60,000 or a little bit more for taxes, right? We're not talking about a 4% safe withdrawal rate, right? So if we have $1 million of capital that needs to kick off $65,000 of cash flow, that's a 6.5% withdrawal rate. And if you know the numbers, you know that if you need a 6.5% withdrawal rate, your portfolio failure rate is going to be 30 or 40%. I mean, it's pretty damn high, right? And so in this solution, what we're going to do for them is we're going to shift some of that money into a guaranteed income annuity that will provide a higher payout percentage as a guaranteed pension, and then leave the rest of the money in the market where we'll still be able to take 4% from the money that's going to be in the market. Now, this meeting just happened today. I haven't run the analysis yet, but my assumption at this point is that it's probably going to be 30 to 40% of their capital going into an annuity to create the pension-like income stream, which will then remove the strain from the remaining investment portfolio to produce income. And so with the remaining investments, we'll be able to stay under the 4% safe withdrawal rate. That way, the combination of the Social Security and the annuity and the investment portfolio can create that $100,000 a year of net income that they're looking for, and do it with a very high level of success or a very low risk of portfolio failure. All right, let's take a look at some of the other questions coming in here. Okay, how do I turn my savings into a paycheck that lasts for the rest of my life? This is the biggest fear that retirees have. Is the number one fear on all the polls is running out of money before they run out of life. I just really talked about this, actually. You implement, there are really three sources of guaranteed lifetime income. There's Social Security. So everybody actually already has an annuity. It's in the form of Social Security. And then there's pensions would be the second one. Unfortunately, most people don't have pensions because those have kind of gone extinct the way of the dinosaurs, right? If you're lucky enough to have a pension, less than 15% of private sector workers have pensions anymore. So you are in a very small minority. So we got Social Security, pensions, and then we can fill in the shortfall with one of these guaranteed income annuities. And I would recommend using only, and this is what I use in my practice for my clients. We shop around and we work only with huge, strong, safe, stable, A-rated insurance companies, right? So that's a way that you can ensure that your paychecks are going to last and that they're going to come in consistently and reliably like clockwork, where they come in every single month for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live. If you live to 125 and you set a world record for mortality, those annuity paychecks, they're never going to stop. And if the market crashes 40%, that pension that's coming in that your annuity created, it's never going to go down. It keeps coming in every single month for the rest of your life. And I also really like annuities from a behavioral finance standpoint, because what it does is it gives people permission to spend their money. Right? Because for the last 30 or 40 years, you've been a saver, you've been an investor, you've been, disciplined savings and denying yourself and sacrifice. And so for many of my clients, it's very hard when they get to retirement to all of a sudden flip a switch and start spending the money that they've saved. Because again, we go to this biggest fear. Well, what if I live a long time? What if we run out of money? What if the stock market crashes? What if we need long-term care? What if this? What if that? And so they tend not to spend their money. They got all these big dreams and goals and hopes for their retirement, but then they actually live retirement as a just-in-case retirement or a what-if retirement. So they don't spend their money. They don't spend their money. They don't spend their money. And then what happens is they die. And what happens to the money? Then the kids get the money. And it's the kids who buy the boat. It's the kids who take the cruise. It's the kids who travel the world. And it shouldn't be that way. And I'm not saying that I'm against kids, leaving your kids some money, but be intentional about it. With the rest of your retirement money, that's your money. We should be setting up a plan where you live the life that you dreamed of, whatever that looks like. And what I have found is implementing an annuity with some of the portfolio and giving yourself a pension. It gives you permission to spend and enjoy your money and live the kind of lifestyle that you had envisioned. All right. Next question here. How much should I keep invested in the stock market after I retire? All right. So we just talked about the benefits of annuities and, removing market risk and having guaranteed lifetime income. But on the flip side, I also see people come in where they have their money positioned way too conservatively, 70 or 80% of their money in CDs, money markets, treasuries, annuities, bonds. And I tell those people, I say, good job. You've removed market risk. You're going to be able to retire on time. You don't have to worry about the market crashing. However, inflation is going to absolutely eat you alive over the next 20 or 25 years, right? Because if you do not have enough growth potential in your portfolio, all of those fixed income sources, what's going to happen is inflation is going to eat you alive. Inflation is like that stealthy, silent wealth killer, right? It erodes the purchasing power of our income sources and of our assets. So no, you probably shouldn't be in 80% safe or conservative products. We do need to have some growth potential in the portfolio. How much exactly should you keep in stocks? Again, this is not investment advice. This is a very, very individualized question. But going back to the case study that I had mentioned a few minutes ago with my clients we're planning for, we've got Social Security, we're moving some money into an annuity to create a guaranteed income floor for them, and then we're able to invest the rest for growth. So that's really what I do as a retirement income planner. Like, how much income do you need? We create an income floor using Social Security, pensions, annuities, right? And then we invest the rest. So it's kind of like you buy your income and you invest the rest. And when I use the annuity strategy, I'm really trying to put the least amount of money that I need to into an annuity to create the income floor and remove the strain on the investment portfolio to produce the income, right? Out of the investment portfolio, I want the portfolio to be producing lower than that 4% safe withdrawal rate, right? And so for many of my clients, even the ones that are retired, if they have an annuity or if they have a strong pension, a lot of my clients, I have them invested much more aggressively than a normal retiree would be. I've got some of those clients, they have really strong annuities. Right now, their investment portfolio looks like 85% stocks and only 15% fixed income. Now, that portfolio was originally designed to be 80-20, and now the stocks have appreciated so much. But in the last 2 or 3 years during this huge market run up, a lot of these clients are getting 10, 12, 14% per year. And they're asking me, like, isn't this a little bit unusual for a retiree? And I'm like, yeah, but we've used an annuity in your portfolio as a bond alternative. Therefore, in the rest of the portfolio, we can reduce the exposure to bonds, which has been a terrible asset class over the last 20 years, by the way. Why keep all that money in bonds when it's not performing, right? So we're able to reduce the exposure to bonds because the annuity is providing the income and doing a hell of a lot better job than a bond would anyway. Right? Therefore, with the remaining investment portfolio, we can invest it more aggressively for growth over time. Again, that's not financial or investment advice. That's just my philosophy as a retirement income planner and an investment manager. Again, it's going to be an individualized question based on your specific goals and your scenario and your risk tolerance. But that's the way that I approach planning with my clients. All right, next question. What happens if the market crashes right after I retire? Well, if you've taken the steps to plan what I just said, making sure that we've taken some of our winnings off the table and locked in our profits and use those profits to purchase some guaranteed income, you're going to be okay. If not, if you're relying solely on the stock and bond market to produce your income, if the market crashes after you retire, you're going to be screwed. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just blunt. Look, if you like hearing like it is, then, make sure that you're following me here on social media. But if the market crashes after you retire, you're going to be in big trouble. I want to go back to 2011, coming out of the great financial crisis of 2007, 8, and 9. In 2011, I was working in the mortgage industry. And at that point in time, people were trying to refinance their homes en masse, even people who were retired or getting close to it. And if you remember why, what happened is in order to stimulate the economy, the government or the Federal Reserve, that was the first time they did QE, and they artificially lowered interest rates pretty quickly. So people were trying to refinance, and then some of them couldn't because they were underwater, if you guys remember that, right? But that's when the government rolled out the HARP loans. It stood for the Home Affordability Refinance Program. And the government backed these loans from the lenders because the lenders were taking on the extra risk because the clients' homes were underwater. And the reason I bring this up is during that time period, as I was on the phone trying to refinance people, there were so many times that I heard people say that I had retired, but I had to go back to work because my retirement account balance got cut in half. Or other people were, hey, we were planning to retire in 2010 and I had to hold on because I had $1 million in my portfolio and a year later it was down to 400,000. And I got to keep working until it comes back. And so if the market crashes shortly after you retired and you haven't made that mental transition into preserving and protecting your money and getting it ready for income and getting it ready for the distribution phase of your retirement, you could be in deep, deep trouble. Now, when do I suggest making that move into what I call the preservation phase, right? Because when you're young, you're 25, 30, even 40 or 50, you're still in the accumulation phase, right? You're saving, you're investing, you're using your 401k, you're in your stocks, and you're building up. So when do I recommend starting to go into preservation mode? I would say 5 years before retirement. So if you want to retire at 65, you want to start preserving your money at age 60. And that doesn't mean all of it. That doesn't mean you take everything you have out of the market. But what that might mean is we roll over 1/3 of what we have into a guaranteed income annuity. You take your winnings off the table, you lock in your profits, and you create a guaranteed pension. That way, at age 65, you know exactly what you're going to get when you retire. Because even if the market does crash 40% in the meantime, when you retire, you know that your Social Security payment is unaffected. And then maybe if you're married, your spouse has Social Security, and then you've got this guaranteed income annuity. If the remaining investments have cratered, okay, that sucks to watch them go down, but it really doesn't affect your retirement income because we've secured your income with Social Security and with that guaranteed income annuity. That allows you to retire on time, allows your investments to recover before we have to start tapping into them, and you're going to be all set. And I would say one of the worst things that a person could do for their retirement is work away the best years of their life. And what I mean by that is everybody has these big goals or these retirement dreams. Some people want to travel. I got one client who bought like an old, I think like a 1967 Corvette. Some people they want to move by their grandkids, and that's all well and good. I'm not telling you what you should do or what you should want to do. That's a very personal decision. But the issue is this: when are going to be the best years of your retirement? Your best years are going to be the earliest years of your retirement. Your best years aren't going to be when you're 85. They're going to be when you're 65. And the reason is earlier on in your retirement, you're obviously younger, but that means you have more energy, less health issues, more vitality to actually go out and be active and do all of the retirement bucket list things that you have dreamed of doing, right? So the problem there is if you don't have your financial plan set up correctly, if you're being too aggressive, the market does crash, and you have to either delay retirement or if you have to go back to work, what that means is you're going to work away the best years of your retirement life, and that's irrevocable. Once that happens, there's no changing it. So you don't get a do-over. That's why I'm so passionate about helping people plan for retirement correctly, helping them go from this mindset of accumulation and thinking about their average rates of return and shifting that and thinking retirement is all about income and we have to secure our income, right? And it's not that I'm against investments in any way, shape, or form. I manage about $45 million of client investments, right? And I have about 20 million in annuities. The point is, though, if you want to retire successfully and you want to do it comfortably and worry-free, where you're not concerned all the time, where you're not constantly turning on Fox News or Fox Business or CNBC and looking what the markets are doing every day, that's no way to live life, right? You want to retire comfortably and worry-free. Maximize your Social Security benefit, put a plan in place and maximize it for your specific goals. Maybe raise that income floor with a guaranteed income annuity and then invest the rest. But my God, make sure that you can retire on time with the level of income that you want, regardless of whether the stock market is going up or down. All right, next question here. How can I reduce taxes in retirement? I think this is a really good question to ask about or discuss like the different tax buckets. So most people out there, when saving for retirement, they're using tax deferred investments like 401ks and IRAs. And that helps you to get a tax deduction and save on taxes during your working years. The trade-off to that is when you retire and start taking money out of your tax deferred buckets, then the income tax is going to be due. And depending on your scenario, if you're successful, potentially your tax brackets could be higher in retirement than what they were in your working years. especially when your required minimum distributions start kicking in, whether it's age 73 or whether it's age 75, depending on the year that you were born. But the other thing too, though, is that the tax structure, the tax brackets, they're not set in stone. They can be changed by Congress just with the vote, the stroke of a pen, and it's happened several times, right? And so I probably, personally, Ron Sneller probably hates paying taxes more than the average guy. But at the same time, I also understand that when you look at the historical context, we're in a very, very low tax environment right now. So for some folks, it might make sense to pay the income tax right now and then save their money in tax-free buckets that they can use to diversify their retirement income. And so that could be Roth 401ks, it could be Roth IRAs, it could be cash value life insurance. All three of those accounts can be accessed tax-free in retirement. So you want to give yourself some diversification, not just from your investment allocation standpoint, but from a tax diversification standpoint too. Right now, to me, again, it's going to really depend on your specific situation. But for me, the kind of like the sweet spot in retirement is being in the 12% tax bracket, because of the way that our tax structure is set up right now with the standard deduction and the additional deduction for seniors over the age of 65 and the additional deductions from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And then you've got the 10% bracket and the 12% bracket. Right now, a married couple over the age of 65 can pull out $148,300 in fully taxable income and be in the 12% marginal bracket. But when you factor in the deductions and the way that the tax bracket is progressive and the way that it's tiered, that actually puts them at a 7.8% effective tax rate, right? So they could pull out $148,300. They'd pay less than $12,000 of federal income tax, and they would net over $136,000. However, if they're in the 12% marginal tax bracket when that happens, what if they need more than that? What if they want to live on $200,000 a year? Well, if they pull out extra, now they're going to bump from the 12% bracket up to the 22% bracket. That's a full 10% jump. And that's actually the highest jump in our current tax code right now. And so that's where you may want to have these tax-free buckets waiting in the wings, Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks, cash value life insurance. Have some other tax-free buckets that you can pull from so you can remain in the 12% bracket and you won't jump to the 22%, right? So tax diversification is key. And again, this isn't tax advice. This is just education, things that you want to be thinking about. Now, when you set a consultation with me, because you can do that by, messaging me on social media, you can go to my website at snellerfinancial.com. You can email me, ron@snellerfinancial.com. You can call my office at 248-499-9676. You can book a consultation with me, and we will set up all of those different tax brackets, what's going to be right for you and your personal situation, and then look at, do Roth conversions make sense for you? Like once you retire, we set that all up for you. And we take care of that. But guys, I'm going to end the live stream now. So we've been on talking for about half an hour. I hope that this was really helpful. I hope as you go through and you hear me discuss these questions, I hope it kind of, maybe makes you think about retirement planning principles from a little bit of a different viewpoint than what you were doing before. We've discussed everything from the 4% safe withdrawal rate to Social Security timing, to how much should I have in investments? Are annuities good? And if so, how much should I put there? So a lot of different things. Wrapping up talking about taxes. If you guys want to visit with me, I highly recommend that you do so. Again, let me put my contact information up there. You can visit my website at www.snellerfinancial.com. You can actually book your own consultation right on the website right there, or you can actually call my office and speak with my administrative assistant. We're here from 9 to 5, usually 9 to 6, actually Monday through Friday, 248-499-9676. You just tell Peyton, that's my administrative assistant who will answer the phone. You just tell her that you saw me on a live stream and you want to visit with me, talk about your retirement income planning, talk about your investments. We meet with you. The consultation is always free. Number one, simply because I figure if you're watching my content online, you're watching education, you're trying to get better, you're trying to learn more, you're trying to put a plan in place. I'm not going to charge you for your time when I don't even know if I can help you, right? So you come to the first consultation, and when you do that, it's only a discovery call, and that's all it is. I'm learning about you and you're learning about me. As a fiduciary advisor, I cannot make a best interest recommendation on a first appointment. So I know a lot of people, they see my content and they come to my classes and they want to visit with me, but I know there's always that trepidation or that fear in the back of their mind. Like, I'm going to go in there and then that guy's going to try to get me to roll over all my life savings the first time that I meet him. And that's not how we work, right? The first meeting, I'm learning about you. I'm learning about you and your family and what you guys do for work and what do you want retirement to look like and how much income you want and how much do you have saved right now and how is that money positioned? And then, if I like you and you like me, when we get to the end of the first meeting, if I think I can help, I'll recommend setting up a second meeting for a week or two out. And on that second meeting, we're still not presenting you with a retirement income plan. Between the first and second meeting, what I'm doing is I'm doing my analysis of your current situation. And I'm going to come back with financial planning reports that I'm going to show you if you don't hire me and if you do not change a thing and if you keep going forward, this is what your retirement is likely to look like, right? And during that process, I would say 8 out of 10 people, they have areas where I can help. I'm identifying gaps. I'm identifying things that are not set up correctly. I'm identifying things that are outright broken. But it's at the end of that second meeting where I just say, here's your gaps. Do you want me to fix it? And if the answer is yes, then we set up a third meeting for another week out. And in between the meetings, that is where I'm designing your comprehensive fiduciary best interest recommendation on exactly how we should structure your money for you to accomplish your goals at retirement. Then it's on that third meeting where I'm actually presenting you your recommendations. And at that point in time, if you like what you see, then you can become a client. And that's where we'll, show you next steps and fill out paperwork in order to come on board and implement the retirement plan, right? So you guys, thank you so much for joining the live stream. Thank you for all the questions, comments, engagement. Really, really appreciate it. As always, I'm here to answer your questions and I'm happy to help. This is Ron Sneller with another episode of Wealthy and Wise Wednesdays. Thanks for tuning in.